The 9 Lives Racing wing is arguably the best functional track S2000 wing you can get for the money. However, there's one significant flaw with the way this is designed, and that is the hardware and expectation for you to attach the front part of the pylon mounts to your trunk. I have developed a kit featuring a few pieces and some hardware that will bolt this section of the front pylon through the outer skin and make it one piece rigid with the skeleton on the inside of the trunk, stabilizing the wing significantly and correcting all the issues that arise from just mounting it to the outer skin. So I'm going to get into it in detail here. Let's go. Here is one of the pylons installed. I'm going to walk you through the process of installing the second one with my reinforcement kit. The reinforcement kit comes with these 3 plates and hardware, which attaches the front part pretty much rock solid through the skeleton of the trunk. So you can see here, nothing is really flexing much on the face of the trunk, and without these parts installed, you'd be bowing this top surface up and down significantly. I'm going to walk you through it here, but first I want to take a step back. So if you're watching this video and you haven't installed your wing yet, you can watch the 9 Lives Racing installation video on YouTube that kind of guides you through. You basically just want to mount the pylons to the wing, snug it up, put it on your trunk, mark your holes, and drill your holes. What you want to do here to make your trunk watertight is get yourself some like adhesive backed soft rubber gasket material. This stuff I got happens to be like a 1/16 inch thick, and then just lay it over here and trace with like an X-Acto knife or something to make yourself a couple gasket templates. If you don't do this, you're gonna have metal on the trunk. It's gonna mar up the trunk and it won't be watertight because these surfaces are flat. Unfortunately, they're not like surface milled to contour the trunk. You can see this one's extremely tight, and it takes up a lot of the gap there and makes it look like it's almost contoured to the trunk on both sides. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to walk you through installing the second one here with my kit. If you have done the install already and you've been running your wing for a while, this kit can be installed at any point. Have your wing attached, you don't really have to completely remove it. Pretty much, if you already have this installed, you can leave. You're obviously going to undo your 2 front bolts here and leave this one. You might want to loosen this one a little bit, but you can leave it snugged up to support the wing when you lift the trunk up, that the wing won't fall off. To make it easier on yourself, you can go ahead and just take it off like I have here, and we'll go ahead and get installing this one right now. All right, so here's a look at the kit installed. This is how it looks on the bottom side of your trunk. Basically, the design intent is there's a backing plate, a spacer behind this that matches the height of the skeleton of the trunk, some flange head nylon locking nuts, and this bolt up here is the original 25mm length 9 Lives Racing bolt, and this is a 50mm bolt that you'll get with the kit. I'm going to walk you through installing it on this side. I'd highly suggest doing it this way, to where you take your hole saw to this one and you don't break through the material all the way, but you just go down to where it's about flat, and then you can bend it flat with a through hole. And right now there's a gap between the trunk skeleton and the outer panel, and what the idea of the backing plate is, it's going to slide in there, align with both holes, and take up that thickness difference and make like a giant washer in there to spread a lot of the load out over a large surface area. But if you didn't have these parts, you'd pretty much, what I did at first was just stuck a washer behind there to take up the thick. But this tiny amount of metal connecting this bent piece to the front, and that's the only thing securing the front of the wing to the skeleton, that little piece. And over time, as you'll see in these pictures, it's very common for the vibrations to break this and cause it to fail. So then once that breaks, all you have is the thin sheet metal outer skin of the trunk holding your wing, and that's just going to deform the heck out of it and wobble around pretty substantially. So this kit doesn't add any extra holes if you already did your trunk and it looks like this, or if you have this tab broken out, not a problem. This kit will install either way. All right, so first things first, this is the base plate. It's cut like this so you can angle it in the trunk and hook it over, because right around here there's a piece of like the factory goo that secures the inner skin to the outer skin, so I couldn't make this totally symmetrical. But what you're going to want to do is give this a little bend by hand. This is only 60,000 galvanized steel. Feel free to paint this to add more corrosion resistance if you want. If you do want to paint it, do some research on how to paint galvanized steel properly. You can't just rattle can it. You're gonna have to do a little bit of prep to paint it, but not a huge deal. You're gonna take this, walk it up, and you can grab these two studs here, kind of walk it over, and then align it with the two holes. You can then take your pylon and mount it using this back bolt with the bolt supplied by 9 Lives Racing. This is the M6 by 25mm flange head bolt. You can snug it up a little bit, but I'd leave it loose so you can still translate the pylon in the hole until all the bolts are in your trunk. So at this point, you can take the inner bolt, thread it through here, and just leave it loose for now. Then you take your reinforcement clamp plate here, and what this does is aligns with these two studs and the bolt that you just installed through the pylon on the opposite side. So this is slotted to allow a lot of compliance for where this hole is drilled. The idea is that this long surface area clamps down on a large section of this rib on the skeleton of the trunk. But before you do that, make sure to put the 2 washers supplied on these studs to raise up the gap so that you're accounting for the thickness of the sheet metal. So I've got my 2 washers slid on there. Slide your plate on. Thread some of these nuts on. With those 2 on, you can then take your other nut and thread on here. Everything just loose right now. And you can see that with this design, the slots allow you to dial it in perfectly to make sure you're clamped on that plate. You tighten everything down, you're effectively bracing the pylon to this whole surface area down here of the trunk, of the skeleton. Since the plate runs underneath everything, you're accounting for the thickness differential already, so you're not squeezing the skeleton closer to the outer skin of the trunk at all. It's all going to maintain its OEM relationships. Alright, so for the bolt that goes towards the outside of the car, you're going to use your 50mm long bolt supply, this M6 by 1, 50mm. You're going to slide it through. And I will say, when I did this trunk and I match drilled this 3/4 inch hole in the backside, it's not perfectly concentric. I didn't do the best job with it, but it still will work for this aluminum spacer here. This is completely flat. The idea behind that is, obviously, and it's got a slot on it, right? So depending on where this hole lands and where you drilled your actual trunk, I know there's going to be quite a bit of variability for everyone out there. So I designed it so that you can get it to where you want it and then put a bend on either side. You want to mark pretty much where it's going to land and then put it in your vise or something and give it a little bit of a bend, so when everything's tight, it's going to want to resist rotating. Just to show you what I mean, this is the other side. You can see that it's got a nice bend on it. Whichever side you choose to do the bend on doesn't really matter, as long as you get it to contour nicely to prevent it from rotating. Slide my plate over the spacer. And thread my nut on. Before you tighten down these 2 nuts, make sure you get this dialed in right where you want it. This whole surface is connected, so it will distribute the load over the skeleton there very nicely. And then once you tighten this down, so you'll get to a point where you feel it to resist pretty hard. It's not like the harder you tighten this, it's going to start deforming the skeleton down. You're going to hit that spacer's going to brace it so that you're not crushing the skeleton at all. Adjust this where you want it. Tighten these down onto the studs. These studs are pressed into that sheet metal backing plate, so they're not going to spin on you. And on the other side of the trunk. I think you'll be happy with how solid this makes the mount to the trunk. Link in description through Race Builds to buy it. If you haven't been on Race Builds before, check it out. It's like the Facebook marketplace for car enthusiasts without the drama of dealing with Messenger. So make an account, you can buy it directly, link your PayPal at Race Builds, submit the payment. I ship these out USPS priority mail, 48 states. Feel free to leave a like on the video, a comment, let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you in the next one.